மேடை உள்ள மரியாதைக்குரியகள், இங்கே கூட்டியிருக்கும் மதிக்குரியவர்கள், என் இனிய மாணவ செல்வங்களே, சகோதர சகோதரிகளே, at the very outset, I would like to congratulate Ravi and his team for last 20 years he has been working tirelessly to promote Thirukkural to get its due place in the outstanding works of the world, getting it international recognition, and also working hard to further immortalize it by a project which he is tirelessly pursuing to engrave every Kural on a mountain. This will be a unique tribute to our great sage Thiruvallur and a place of pride for all of us in Tamil Nadu, in the whole country. About a year back, when I came to this estate, one of the first book I was introduced was Thirukkural. And since then, I have been reading it, trying to understand the insights, the meaning of every Kural. I have about 12 translations of the Kurals done by about a dozen other authors, right from the British time to the contemporary time. Every time I open the book and I read a Kural, I feel overwhelmed by the depth of thoughts, the depth of meaning inherent in every word, of every Kural. Of course, its literary genius is amazing, composing all these Kurals in such a symmetrical way that it completes in 1.5 line. It's poetic in rendition. It's a work of an incredible literary genius. I feel completely overwhelmed by the range of issues that it discusses, it touches upon, its breadth and depth. I think it will take perhaps a lifetime for people to understand the full meaning, the full context of it. Last time I had the privilege to inaugurate a Thirukkural conference in Coimbatore. Ravi had given me the opportunity. And this is the second time I am doing it. You know, I have expressed some of my views. I don't claim to be a scholar of Tamil, but the fact is that it has been translated by so many authors, so many people, learned people. All these has helped me in getting some insight. Though I'm learning Tamil and I do understand, I read the newspaper, but I don't have that desired degree of confidence. I don't like to embarrass you guys by speaking my Tamil. One thing which has actually struck me when I began reading, I find it a very unique mix of a Dharma Shastra and a Niti Shastra. It's a spirituality as well as Niti Shastra is about righteous conduct for everyone, what we call, Adhyatma, spirituality, when I say it is Adhyatma, and Niti Shastra, where the righteous duties of different people, right from king, the ruler, Raja Dharma, to Pitri Dharma, Putra Dharma, all how people should conduct themselves. So it's a unique blend, a unique mix of the two. It, of course, it begins with a bhakti, total surrender to Adi Bhagavan, the Supreme God. It moves on. It talks about how to control one's indriyas, one's senses, 5 senses. That helps the person in freeing oneself, not only in the higher evolution, but freeing himself from the cycle of birth and death. And in a graded way. When you control at one point, in its second 10 couplets that it begins from 21 onward, for third segment, it also says that if you have those who have controlled their indriyas, 5 senses, the reward of which they will get in 7 births. 7 births is something that people all talk about. It talks about sannyasa, renunciation. It is in various phases, he has mentioned it, renunciation. And more precisely collected in a very collective form in one place is Kural 341 to Kural 350, where he says that person who is detached from the worldly affairs, who has dissolved his or her sense of I, ego, that person reaches a loka which is even rare for the gods. In our concept, in our Bharatiya Adhyatma, we have a concept of Brahmaloka and Devaloka. Brahmaloka is a loka of Adi Bhagavan, who created the world. And, it says that the Supreme God created the world. Gods, there are many gods. Heaven is Devaloka. The gods are entitled to live in the Devaloka. But Brahmaloka is beyond, above that. And the one who has completely dissolved his or her ego reaches the Brahmlok, which is rare even for the gods. It talks about this. In Kural 349, it says that those who are attached to the God and detached from the world, they get free from the cycle of life and birth and death. It talks about moksha. That is what the moksha is all about. How to free oneself from the cycle of birth and death. It talks very, very categorically, clearly, through sannyas, how do you attain moksha? It talks about ahimsa, love to all creatures, every being. When you read his Kurals on ahimsa, you get reminded of Jain rishis, Rishabdev to Mahavira. They all talked about ahimsa. This has been our Bharatiya Adhyatma. When he talks about freedom from the cycle of life and death, you feel the echoes of Buddha, Lord Buddha, Nirvana. Nirvana is what? Is the freedom from the cycle of birth and death. And that is what moksha in Sanatana Dharma it is said. Now, it goes on and on and on. Unfortunately, we have presented this as a book on code of conduct. And it has been conditioned. We all have been conditioned in last over 100 years to look at it only as a book which tells you the code of conduct, how one should behave and how one should not behave. The whole spirituality of it, which is so rich, and it carries the echoes of our Bharatiya Adhyatma, Indian spirituality, is played down. So much so, without meaning anything to our first speaker, she also called it a great literary work. Yes, no doubt about it. It's a great literary work. Masterpiece. But somehow, Professor Velraj said it is the root of our Indian culture. But somehow we feel shy of talking about spirituality. It's the source of our spirituality. Why? This conditioning, which began in the colonial period, it persists. One of the first person who came and translated this Thirukkural was G.U. Pope. Now, when I say, some people take offense to that, and noises are made. You cannot suppress the truth by noise. We must understand what damage G.U. Pope has done and what was his mission in India. You know, in 1813, the British Parliament had passed a law. It is called India Charter Act 1813. You are all intelligent people, well-read people. I urge you to look into it. India Charter Act of 1813. This act of British Parliament mandates the British government, East India Company, everyone, to evangelize India. This was a clear mandate given by the British Parliament to the East India Company and all the people associated with it and the British government, that their job is to evangelize India. And in this background, people like G.U. Pope and Bishop Caldwell, they came. He was a member of SPG, Society for Promotion of Gospel. He came and besides learning Tamil language, he started translating that sacred text of this place. And in this translation, he de-spiritualizes it. He plays it down. The very first Kural, when it talks about Adi Bhagavan is an expression understood in any Indian languages. Tell in Malayalam, Kannada, Bangla, Assamese, Punjabis, Hindi. Any language you say Adi Bhagavan, everyone understands it is Supreme God. But what is the word he used? When G.U. Pope used, he called it primal deity. Every primitive society has its deity. Whichever society you go in any other tribal area, any part of it you go, every society has every primitive society has its own set of deities. So calling it primal deity, why didn't he call it God? Because he knew God. He could have called it God. We still believe, we all respect God. We all pray to God. But he didn't use the word God. He used the word primal deity. Language is very powerful. It gets rooted in you. Basically trying to underplay the civilization. Basically try to underplay the spiritual evolution of the people of this place. Great Thirukkural has used different expressions for gods in different Kurals. At some places, in the area where he talks about renunciation, sannyas, he calls them, when he says that even those who have dissolved their ego goes to the loka, which is not even attainable for gods, he used the word vanor. He has different expression for gods. Adi Bhagavan is Adi Bhagavan. But G.U. Pope calls him a primal deity. I wonder how it has not struck to any of us. And subsequently, this de-spiritualized Thirukkural has been used for political purposes by people for their vested interest. By people, those who don't believe in God. It became a handy translation. And since then, we have made statues of Thirukkural. We pay floral tribute to him because Thirukkural lives in the heart of our people. Every Tamil person, he lives in the heart. He's so dear. He cannot be ignored. So, you hijack him. And hijack him in a de-spiritualized manner, where you reduce it to a code of conduct. I think this is not being fair. Thirukkural has to be restored in its full glory. It is an outstanding work, outstanding book. It is an outstanding combination of spirituality and Niti Shastra, Dharma Shastra and Niti Shastra. It has to be appreciated in its fullness. And that is where I would urge our people not to listen to me what I am saying, not to listen to anyone. Read yourself, try to understand, go into the depth of it. Because what great Thirukkural said, it is the sum and substance of Bharatiya Adhyatma. This is our identity. This is what makes us who we are. It is a far greater work than a mere book of do's and don'ts, a code of conduct. We call it ethics, that's all. I mean, this de-spiritualization is denial of our heritage, our spiritual heritage, and our culture itself is a derivative. It derives from that heritage, so it is also a denial of our culture. At a time when our country is moving forward, India is rising, India is awakened. It is unstoppable, it will march. We have entered the Amrit Kal, 25 years, the next quarter century of building India into a developed countries, taking it to the summit of world leadership. By 2047, when the country would be celebrating, and many of you young students would be at the helm of affairs, celebrating the centenary of this country, this country has to be where its destiny lies. And it is for the good of the world. Now, Thirukkural edition, the book which we have released today, for the peace and harmony in the world. This is Bharatiya Adhyatma. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya. Vasudhaiva kutumbakam. This happens only in Bharat. It doesn't happen anywhere else. This Vasudhaiva kutumbakam. And that is why Thirukkural belongs to the world. It doesn't belong to one set of people. Tiruvalluvar was for the whole world. But that is precisely what our saints and seers, from time immemorial till the present day, time of Swami Vivekananda, Rishi Aurobindo, they all said that rise of Bharat is for the benefit of the world. Because the Western world is too much engrossed in Adi Bhautik Buddhi. This is a material Buddhi. This spiritual awareness, seeing divinity in all, looking at everyone, all of you sitting here, I see myself reflected in all, in manifest different myriad faces. When one starts seeing that, what great Thiruvalluvar says, when I dissolve my I, and when I becomes zero, I get merged in the whole. This is Bharatiya Adhyatma. This is the root of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This sanskar, this belief, this faith is in the DNA of Bharatiya in India. And that is why, to save the world, India has to rise. And India is rising. And India will rise. It is unstoppable. In this rise, we don't have only to rise materially. Of course, we have to be the leader in industry, we have the science and technology. We have to be leader. There is no question of it. But if you stop at that, India will be a poor imitation of the West. After all, West also has it. We must have it. But what makes India India, what makes us what we are, is our spirituality. When we rise, our spirituality also has to rise. There has to be a comprehensive resurgence. And in this comprehensive resurgence, Thirukkural has to get the due place which it deserves. And it will get a due place. Because eventually we all know, Satyameva Jayate. Truth only prevails, and it will prevail. It cannot be suppressed by noise. It cannot be suppressed by people with certain vested interest. It cannot be projected and cannot remain in its diminutive size. You see, I have seen, as I told you, I have got 20 translations. But each translation has just 1 to 2 or kind of 3 lines. No, I mean, there are very few who have gone into depth. We have to go. We have to appreciate the full beauty of it. And that is possible only when we delve into the spirituality of it. It has to be translated, it has to be understood in its full dimension. And that will be a great contribution to the rise of India. That will be a great contribution to the benefit of the world. So I would urge all of you, including those who are working towards taking it to its place, don't feel shy. Don't reduce it to a literary document. Don't reduce it to a piece of culture. It's a far more comprehensive document. It is a document that represents India. It's the ethos of India, the thought of India, the identity of India. Friends, I wish all of you very good luck, good fortune, good life ahead. And this team of Mr. Ravi Kumar and all the great success. And I certainly will continue exhorting and doing my best, whatever I can. Thank you very much. Namaskar.